A young waitress named Ilya works at a high-tech diner on a floating colony orbiting Earth. One day, a quiet, expressionless boy begins coming in regularly. He never speaks. The staff avoids him. Rumors say he's the son of a powerful tech mogul rumored to be involved in cybernetic experimentation. But Ilya sees something different in the boy's eyes. Pan and curiosity. ChatGPT said. The neon lights of the orbital diner flickered with a rhythmic hum, casting reflections across the chrome counters and smart glass walls. Outside, Earth hung like a glowing marble beyond the gravity dome, a constant reminder of how far humanity had come and how far it had drifted. Ilya wiped down the countertop for the third time in an hour, mostly out of habit. There weren't many customers on late orbit shifts anymore, not since automated delivery drones had taken over most food service routes. But she stayed. The place reminded her of simpler times when people still talked to each other. It was during one of these slow shifts that he appeared again. Same time, same booth, back corner, near the tinted window with the best view of Earth's curvature. The boy, no older than 10, sat silently. He wore a dark thermal coat with a high collar that hid half his face, and his hands were always clasped on the table as if he were waiting for something or someone. He never ordered, never spoke, just stared, with a gaze too deep for a child. The first time he'd arrived, 2 weeks ago, Ilya had approached with her usual smile. "Hey there, sweetheart. You lost?" He hadn't answered, just stared at her with those dark, mechanical-tinged eyes like camera lenses with a soul hiding behind them. Ilya had blinked, unnerved. The others at the diner kept their distance after that. Rumors spread quickly, especially in space. "That's Lucien Voss's kid," one of the other waiters whispered. "The billionaire. Owns half the AI patents. In orbit. Word is, the boy doesn't talk. Some kind of experimental defect." But Ilya didn't buy into gossip. She knew loneliness when she saw it, and whatever tech was in that kid's body, his soul was human enough to feel pain. Tonight, like clockwork, the boy was back. Ilya walked over slowly, placing a vanilla protein shake in front of him. "On the house," she said, smiling. "Figured you might want to try something sweet." He stared at the glass but didn't touch it. His eyes shifted to her, curious, calculating. There was a flicker of something, acknowledgement, maybe even gratitude, but still, no words. Ilya sighed and slid into the booth opposite him. "You don't talk, huh? That's okay. I talk enough for two." The boy blinked slowly. She pulled a napkin from her apron, grabbed a stylus from her pocket, and began sketching. A quick doodle, an old-fashioned robot dog with wheels instead of legs. The boy leaned forward slightly. "You like robots?" she asked, tapping the sketch. He looked down and then took the stylus from her hand. Slowly, deliberately, he drew a symbol beside the dog. A string of dots and dashes. Ilya frowned, then smiled in realization. Morse code. He nodded once. "You're smart," she whispered, impressed. "Really smart." He began writing more short bursts of code and symbols, some of them binary. Ilya watched in fascination as he communicated through these quiet signals. He wasn't mute, he was locked, trapped behind invisible constraints, like someone had hit mute on a speaker that desperately wanted to sing. The diner around them seemed to fade away. Ilya leaned in, matching his pace, decoding what she could, responding softly. She didn't notice how much time had passed until the boy stood suddenly. He looked at her, then toward the exit. "Gotta go?" she asked. He nodded, again, then paused. Before he turned, he placed his hand over his chest, then pointed to her. His version of thank you. Ilya smiled, but as he disappeared into the corridor of the orbital station, a chill ran down her spine. This boy wasn't just quiet. He was hiding a truth no one else dared uncover. The next evening, Ilya arrived at the diner earlier than usual. She didn't tell anyone, but she was hoping he'd return. The boy's silent presence had left a strange emptiness in the air when he left. He hadn't spoken a word, yet something about their interaction had stuck with her like a glitch in the routine that she didn't want to fix. By 20 o'clock orbital time, the diner was nearly empty again, just as she liked it. The hum of the overhead solar coils provided a gentle white noise. Ilya had barely finished aligning the menu holoprojections when the diner's pressure-locked doors slid open. There he was. Same coat, same stiff walk, same expressionless face. He moved like someone carefully calculating every step, as if the ground might disappear if he didn't place his feet just right. He made his way to the back booth and sat without looking at anyone. Ilya took a deep breath, grabbed 2 protein shakes this time, and made her way over. "I made this one strawberry," she said as she slid it across the table. "Might be your new favorite." He tilted his head slightly but didn't drink. Still, He didn't push it away either. Ilya pulled a small portable holopad from her apron. I brought something for us to play with. She activated the device. A low hum pulsed from the surface as a projection bloomed to life, an old-school robot dog, similar to the one she'd drawn the night before. This time it wagged its tail, blinked its metal eyes, and barked with digital joy. The boy's eyes lit up, not wide or dramatic, just a subtle glimmer, but Ilya caught it. His name's Mutt, she said. You can program him, if you want. The boy reached out and tapped the holodog gently. It responded by spinning in place and sitting. Then he placed both hands on the table and stared at Ilya's face. She understood. You want to change its code. He nodded once. Ilya handed him the stylus and slid the interface toward him. The boy's fingers flew across the screen, far faster than she expected for someone his age. Lines of code scrolled across the pad. He wasn't just programming the dog, he was rewriting the framework, building in emotional responses, even mimicking voice commands. Wait, are you adding a voice interface? He asked, amazed that the boy didn't answer. But a second later, the robotic dog turned toward Ilya and said in a metallic voice, "Thank you, Ilya." She gasped softly, her eyes darting from the projection to the boy. You made it speak. The boy gave the slightest smile, but then immediately looked down. He pulled the stylus away and tapped out a new sequence binary this time. Ilya recognized some of the code. Can't speak, not allowed. She leaned closer. Someone disabled your voice interface. Is that what happened? He hesitated, then nodded. She blinked, a surge of anger rising beneath her ribs. Who did this to you? The boy froze. Before she could ask again, the holopad made a soft beep. The dog projection flickered, then reset. The code had timed out. Ilya looked at the boy. His eyes were now filled with something unfamiliar, fear. Just then, the booth's light dimmed automatically, responding to the diner's curfew protocols. The boy stood quickly, knocking over the strawberry shake. He didn't clean it. He didn't apologize. He just turned to leave. Wait, Ilya called softly, but he was already walking away, faster than before. As he reached the door, he paused. With one final glance, he tapped the side of his own throat, then pointed toward her. Ilya understood. Keep talking. And then he was gone, swallowed by the shadows of the orbital station once more. She stared at the puddle of pink on the table, feeling a chill despite the artificial warmth of the diner. He hadn't spoken, but for the first time, he had been heard. The next morning, Ilya couldn't focus. Not on the diner, not on the breakfast orders, not even on the fried synth bacon sizzling behind the counter. Her thoughts circled back to the boy, his mechanical gaze, his silent plea, and that haunting binary message. Can't speak, not allowed. Who would silence a child, and why? By noon, she'd made up her mind. She borrowed a worker's access drone and used it to trail the station's internal transport pods. It had taken 2 days of observation to notice the boy's pattern. Every night, exactly 22 minutes. After leaving the diner, he boarded a private tram that only accessed one restricted section of the orbital ring. Sector V9, that part of the station wasn't open to the public. It was owned by Voss Industries, the company run by Lucien Voss, one of the most powerful technocrats in the solar system. Ilya knew the name. Everyone did. Voss was famous for creating the neural bridges that allowed humans to interface directly with machines, smart limbs, voice implants, AI, therapy, but it was also whispered that they were developing something else, something experimental and dangerous. Her fingers trembled as she rerouted her security badge through a cracked subroutine she'd found on an old engineer's tablet. A hacker, but she'd grown up fixing things, learning scraps of code from her older brother, back before the AI wars. When the service hatch in Sector V9 clicked open, she slipped inside. The corridor was colder, quieter. The air here wasn't meant for visitors. Dim lights flickered along the ceiling, casting elongated shadows on the walls. The deeper she went, the more sterile and lifeless it became. No posters, no plants, just clean steel and the occasional hum of distant machinery. Then she heard it, a soft, rhythmic ticking, like a metronome. She followed it down a hallway and stopped in front of a reinforced door marked with a warning symbol, prototype containment, authorized personnel only. A console blinked next to it, demanding a code. Ilya hesitated, then tried the boy's binary message from the night before, converting it to numerical sequence. The door hissed open. Inside was a lab unlike anything she'd ever seen. Floating holographic screens, cryopods, racks of neural chips suspended in liquid. But what made her breath catch wasn't the tech, it was the wall of files. Dozens of labeled entries, all under one project name, Project A, EON, Artificial. Emotion Optimization Nexus, and then she saw the file labeled Unit-7. She tapped the screen. The boy's face appeared. His name wasn't listed, just a code. A line of data underneath chilled her to the core. Status: Hybrid AI Human Construct. Vocal Module disabled. Reason: Emotional instability. Subject demonstrated unauthorized empathy. During Phase 3 testing, Ilya's heart pounded. He wasn't just mute, he wasn't even fully human by their definition. He was a test subject, a child engineered, trained, then silenced. Footsteps echoed down the hallway. Fast, heavy. She turned off the screen and ducked behind a pillar just as a pair of security drones floated past, scanning the room with red beams. One paused near her hiding spot. She held her breath. Her fingers brushed against a pressure switch on the wall, probably controlling the lighting. With one smooth motion, she shut down the power to the room. Darkness swallowed everything. She ran, back through the corridors, through the hatch, and into the lower residential decks, gasping for breath. Her heart felt like it would explode, not from fear but fury. They weren't just keeping him quiet, they were burying what he really was. Something powerful, something human. And now, she knew too much. But she also knew one thing for certain. She had to help him find his voice, before they took it from him forever. Ilya didn't sleep that night. Her mind replayed every line of code, every flicker of emotion she'd seen in the boy's eyes, and every word she'd read in that hidden lab. Unauthorized empathy. Vocal module disabled. He hadn't been born mute, he'd been programmed that way. Silenced because he felt too much. She had to confront the one man who had the power to stop it, Lucien Voss. It took 2 days of digging, favors, and pretending to be a tech courier just to get within reach of the Vostok executive tower. The structure stood at the heart of the orbital colony, like a monument to human arrogance, glass and steel piercing the artificial sky. No windows, only mirrored panels, as if nothing inside needed to see the stars. Ilya forged a work order for a faulty neural link interface and used a maintenance lift to ascend. Her palms were slick with sweat, her chest tight with nerves, but her resolve was clear. This wasn't just about the boy anymore, it was about what Vostok was doing to children like him, to people like him. She reached the executive floor, and stepped into a stark, silent lobby. A biometric scanner greeted her with a soft chime. "State your business." A voice echoed from hidden speakers. Ilya held up the forged work order, trying to steady her voice. "Technical maintenance, neural port check on core suite 17. There was a pause, then a soft click. The doors opened. Inside, Lucien Voss stood at the far end of the room, facing a holographic projection of Earth. His posture was composed, his back straight, and his hands folded behind him. The air in the room felt colder, calculated. "I assume you're not actually here to fix anything," he said without turning. Ilya froze. Lucien finally turned. His face was older than she expected, sharp cheekbones, silver at his temples, but his eyes were ruthless. The kind of eyes that had seen failure and turned it into billion-dollar success stories. The kind of eyes that viewed emotions as inefficiencies. "I saw the boy," she said quietly. "I know what you did to him." Lucien's expression didn't change. "You mean Unit 7? He's not a unit, he's a child." Her voice shook. "He speaks through code, through gestures. He wants to feel, to connect, and you shut that part of him off like he's a broken machine." Lucien walked slowly toward her, his steps deliberate. "You think you understand, but you don't. That child is the product of 15 years of research and trillions of credits. A perfect blend of AI and organic biology, designed to lead, not to weep. Emotions are errors, not enhancements." Ilya stepped forward, her eyes burning. "He said my name. He looked at me with real fear, real kindness. You didn't create a tool, you created a person. And you caged him the moment he showed signs of being more than a robot." Lucien paused. Something flickered behind his stern gaze, but it vanished quickly. "I terminated his vocal functions after a failed empathy trial," he said flatly. He expressed concern for another test subject. He disobeyed protocol. He malfunctioned. "No," Ilya whispered, reaching into her pocket. She pulled out her small holorecorder and tapped it once. A projection of the robot dog they had coded together appeared, barking once, and then speaking in a distorted but clear voice. "Thank you." Lucien's eyes locked on it, his jaw tensed. "That's him. That's not a malfunction. That's a miracle," she said. For a moment, silence filled the room. Then Lucien turned away. "You'll be escorted off this level, and you'll never speak to him again." Tears welled in Ilya's eyes as she stepped back, her fists clenched. Not protecting him, she whispered. You're afraid of what he might become if he learns to speak for himself. Lucien didn't respond. But for the first time, Ilya saw hesitation in his reflection against the glass. And that gave her hope. Ilya didn't return to the diner the next day, or the day after that. She'd been terminated from her job. The moment she left Vostok Tower. No questions. No warning. Her access ID was revoked. Her account flagged for surveillance. Even her room on the orbital colony had been cleared out. She'd found her few belongings in a crate outside the docking bay. Like someone had erased her existence. But none of it mattered. She hadn't tried to fight the decision. Because in her heart, she knew she had done the right thing. She spent her days in silence, wandering the lower districts of the colony, wondering what had become of the boy. Did Lucien shut him down, move him to another lab? Was he locked away, voiceless again, forever? Her only answer was the emptiness that followed her, a shadow heavier than the artificial gravity under her boots. Then, on the 7th evening, something strange happened as she passed the old diner, now dark and mostly empty. She noticed a growing crowd outside. Civilians, engineers, even a few off-duty officers. They were gathering near the glass front, pressing close as if drawn by something extraordinary. She felt a strange pull in her chest, and pushed her way through the crowd, and then she saw him, standing on top of one of the silver tables, illuminated by the soft overhead lights. Was the boy, but not silent. Not hiding. He stood tall, still small, still wrapped in his heavy coat butt with a microphone clutched tightly in one hand, patched into the diner's old PA system. The crowd quieted, and then he spoke. It was shaky, his voice metallic, stuttering through the neural modulator built into his throat. But it was real. Thank you, he said slowly. Thank you, Ilya, for giving me my voice. Gasps rippled through the crowd. People looked at each other, stunned. Some began recording, others simply watched in awe, as if witnessing something sacred. Ilya couldn't move. Her hands were trembling, her throat tight. The boy looked directly at her as if he had known she'd be there, as if he had waited for this moment. Behind him, the diner door opened once more. Lucien Voss stepped inside. No bodyguards, no drones, just the man himself, tall, proud, always composed. But something was different now. His face wasn't stern, his posture wasn't stiff, and in his eyes was something she had never thought she'd see, remorse. He approached the table. Slowly, the boy turned to face him, silent once again, but not in fear. In strength. Lucien looked up at his creation, his son, and spoke, not to the crowd, but to him. I was wrong, he said quietly. I was afraid that your voice would make you unstable, that it would break you. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small metallic scroll, an encrypted data key glowing with soft green light. But it didn't, he continued. It made you whole. He offered the scroll to Ilya. I don't expect forgiveness, he said, his voice tight. But this belongs to you. Consider it compensation, or gratitude, or guilt, call it what you like. It's access to a full trust. Enough credits to change your life. Ilya stared at the scroll, unmoving, but what finally made her cry wasn't the money, it wasn't the crowd, or the spectacle, or even Lucien's unexpected change of heart. It was the boy, because in that moment, as he stepped down from the table, walked toward her, and wrapped his small arms around her waist, in a silent hug, Ilya knew she hadn't saved a machine. She had helped a child find his voice, and the sound of it had changed everything.